Welcome also from my side. I'm Elena Simperl. I'm also at King's College London. I'm a professor of computer science there. And as Laura was telling you, we've been talking about organizing an event like this since the very early days of the Data Stories project, which gives its name to this first symposium. The project itself started 3 years ago, funded by EPSRC in the UK. When I was doing these slides, as we're approaching now the final months of the project, I sort of started to think back about at the times when it emerged for the first time. And the story of Data Stories actually is as follows. In the summer of 2016, I had a conversation. It was more of a rant rather than a conversation with Jenny Tennyson, who is one of the leading figures at the Open Data Institute. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it gives you perhaps some context on why we wrote what we wrote and why we set out to do what Data Story became. And these are the two opening paragraphs of the bid we wrote back then, which talk about the EU referendum result, which literally was a few days old back then. Talked about the rise of Donald Trump, who had not been yet elected in the White House. But basically, we wanted to do Data Stories because we were concerned that established, trusted ways to communicate data had failed us. And while this wasn't a dramatically new concern, we suddenly felt back then that we needed to do something about it. And we needed more research around this topic. So Data Stories is centered around this idea that data, facts, and evidence must entertain and excite to be able to inform and educate. And that if it were to stand a chance against numbers that are written on the side of the buses, it needs to use different approaches to engagement and to communication. Because while the quality and the truthfulness and other qualities of the data are really important, so is its ability to speak to local, to personal, to topical concerns. And so it's its ability to be shared on social media to reach as many people as possible. But to do this, we had to first learn more about how people find and make sense of data in the first place. Say this find, make sense news data was the first research theme we approached in the project. And it was a theme Laura led on, where we had lots of collaborations with many institutions, including the Open Data Institute, the University of Amsterdam, DUNS, the European Data Portal, the Kaggle team with Google, and so on and so forth, which resulted in insights that range from the more theoretical and conceptual, like frameworks and approaches, to the more specific and concrete, like specific checklists and templates and algorithms. And we've studied several human data interaction scenarios. We started from data discovery and search, and then we moved on to sense making, to data use, data reuse, and more recently to teamwork around data. A central piece in our thinking were data representations. And we looked specifically at summaries. So summaries is a recurrent theme also in the symposium, as Laura just introduced. We're going to be creating, with the help of Catherine, these visual summaries of the talks today. But in our research, we looked at summaries of structured data that we considered as sort of an intermediary format that sits between raw data and metadata that typically describes a data set, and perhaps charts and visualizations. And we've carried out several studies that aimed at understanding the makeout of these summaries. And we spoke to scientists and to other data professionals to learn how they write, how they talk about the data set. And you'll hear more about this in Kathleen Gregory's presentation at 12 o'clock. We've also looked at what it means to use someone else's data, and there we took a slightly different approach. Say, from our work in open data and linked data and data science, we knew that there's lots of technical standards and there's lots of guidance that teach publishers how to make their data easier to use. And in the same time, the same publishers were telling us that they had no idea how much reuse actually happens and whether any of the things they were doing to encourage it had any effects. So we set out to find some evidence to understand what makes data more or less used. And for that, we've used activity logs. So we've actually looked at what people do on data platforms, on data portals. We've analyzed search behavior, we analyze the comments they leave to sort of try to establish a link between what we think publishers should do to make data more usable, more accessible, and what actually happens in reality. In the second theme of data stories, we looked at how to make data more accessible. And for us, this was less about improving the usability of existing tools, though we did some work on building a storytelling tool that provides narrative templates as well as automated support. For us, this was primarily about understanding how data could entertain as well as inform, excite, as well as educate, as we said at the beginning of the talk. And for that, we looked primarily at games and at art as data experiences, and we've studied the effects of data games on human data interaction, and with some mixed results. So we've built our own games, we looked at games built by other people, and we found a sort of tension between gameplay and narrative and how effective these games are in conveying key data and facts compared to, say, more pedestrian tools like spreadsheets and visualizations. And you're going to hear more about this in Tom Blount's presentation, again in the session at 12 o'clock. We've also worked with the Data's Culture program at the Open Data Institute and with Ben Neal, Eddie Joe Murray, and Harmeet Chagga Khan from Birmingham Open Media. They produced this really stunning mixed media digital pinball machine, which by now encompasses not just the actual pinball you see here on the in the middle of the slide, but also an online game, an Android app, and so on. And the idea, the whole work is called Mood Pinball. And the idea is that it is trying to reimagine in a playful way how citywide data might be used by people to find their comfort zones and to improve their experiences in a city. Through the Starts Arts Residencies program, we also had the chance to work together with the fantastic team at Fast Familiar, who are also here with us tomorrow. They developed Smoking Gun, which one could describe as a collaborative thriller that unfolds over a number of days, supported by a platform that investigates playful data analysis, which could be used to explore a whole range of data-centric narratives from fake news to technocracy. And you're going to hear more about this, and you're going to get a sense, a teaser of this experience tomorrow in the workshop on Smoking Gun by Dan Barnett and Joe McAllister. The other topic we worked on in this theme is around sharing data on social media. And social media is a key vector in online misinformation and polarization. And we wanted to understand whether data, facts, and evidence could go as viral as, say, the latest presidential tweet. And we know that by now, tens of thousands of visualizations are shared every day on Twitter. And we wanted to understand how these visualizations travel on social media. So we've built a deep learning system where we first classified different types of imagery to see whether they were actually data visualizations or different types of charts. And then we looked at information propagation networks to predict how much they will be shared based on features of the account that posts, of the post in which the chart is embedded, and on the chart itself. Let me just conclude this short introduction by thanking the entire team at the University of Southampton, at King's College London, and at the Open Data Institute. Some of them are here today with us, and you're going to hear from them in presentations for these 3 amazing years. And So I'd like to thank them for everything. I would like to thank our partners as well, who've been guiding us from the initial scoping of the research to providing feedback on the frameworks, on the methods, on the tools we built, to creating those arts experiences we so much enjoyed. Thanks again for being here today. And there is a list of publications here for those who want to know more about the work. Thank you.